You are listening to the Pregnancy Podcast with Vanessa Merton. Hello, thank you for tuning into the Pregnancy Podcast. In today's episode, we're talking about how your breasts change during pregnancy and breastfeeding. During the time that you're pregnant, your body changes more than at any other time in your life. And there's lots of changes to your breasts. From the early weeks where they can be really tender and swollen through the months that you will spend breastfeeding, your breasts go through a major transformation. Some of these changes are visible, like your breasts getting bigger, having darker areolas, more prominent veins. Others are internal as your body is building all of the machinery it needs to feed your baby. In this episode, learn exactly what to expect, why each change happens, and how to manage symptoms like sensitivity, leaking, and stretch marks. The more that you understand about what your body is doing, the easier it is to replace worry or concern with appreciation for how hard your body is working to prepare for your baby. You can find the full article and all of the resources for this episode at pregnancypodcast.com/breast. If you're pregnant, you've probably typed a symptom into Google and fallen down a rabbit hole of forms and worst case scenarios. I built the Pregnancy Podcast so that you don't have to do that. Join Premium and get access to every episode with evidence-based information on any topic. Plus, it's all ad-free in your favorite podcast app. Check it out at pregnancypodcast.com/premium. The VTech V-Hush stroller rocker gently rocks your baby's stroller or crib so that they can sleep peacefully anywhere. It has 3 motion levels, an amber nightlight, and built-in soothing sounds and lullabies. Check it out at pregnancypodcast.com/VTech. From skincare to treating common pregnancy symptoms like stretch marks with clinically proven ingredients, 8 Sheep Organics has you covered. Every product comes with a 100-day happiness guarantee. Try it risk-free, and if you're not 100% happy with your purchase, simply send them an email and they'll get you a refund, no questions asked. Check out 8 Sheep Organics and save 10% at pregnancypodcast.com/8sheep. AG1 is the daily health drink that combines a multivitamin, pre- and probiotics, superfoods, and antioxidants into one simple scoop. It's one of the easiest things that you can do to support your body. Head to drinkag1.com/pregnancypodcast to get a free welcome kit, a free bottle of vitamin D3K2, and a free flavor sampler with your first subscription. Go to drinkag1.com/pregnancypodcast. Breasts are far more complex than they appear. Internally, you have the pectoralis muscles that forms the first layer. On top of that sits a layer of fatty tissue. That's what gives your breasts their size and shape. And then within that fatty tissue is a tree-like network of branching milk ducts. On the outside, you have the areola. That's the darker skin surrounding the nipple. That contains small glands called Montgomery tubercles. And at the center is the nipple, which has anywhere from 4 to 18 ducts connecting to it. Nearly every change that you will notice traces back to one of these structures growing, shifting, or getting ready for lactation. Hormones are the driving force behind nearly every change you experience during pregnancy, and your breasts are no exception. Hormones are the reason that breasts develop in the first place, and that's a process that starts in puberty with a rise in estrogen. That's the same reason that you may notice your breasts change slightly across your menstrual cycle. During pregnancy, there are 3 hormones that are doing most of the work to make changes here. It's progesterone, estrogen, and prolactin. Progesterone supports the formation and the growth of milk-producing cells within your breasts. Estrogen stimulates the growth of the duct cells and triggers the secretion of prolactin. Prolactin drives breast enlargement and milk production by building the lactocytes that actually secrete milk. Then after you have your baby, your estrogen and progesterone levels drop very quickly, and that sharp fall combined with the continued rise in prolactin is what initiates milk production. One of the most obvious changes is that your breasts will get bigger. Most expecting moms notice growth beginning in the first trimester, and that happens as the ducts and areolae are multiplying rapidly to prepare for breastfeeding. As a result, your breasts can feel fuller and heavier. There's not a pile of research on exactly how much breasts grow, but a recent study measured the same 83 women in their first and third trimesters, and they found that breast volume increased by roughly 23 to 24%. That's just the average. There was really a huge range. Typically, most moms end up about 1 or 2 cup sizes larger by the end of their pregnancy, and potentially another cup size when their milk comes in. There is some research showing that the amount of increase doesn't depend on the size of your breast pre-pregnancy. So that means whether you are an A cup or a double D, your breasts will grow. For some expecting moms, this is a fun perk of pregnancy. But for others, this is not a welcome change, especially for some women who already have larger breasts. However you feel about your breasts before, during, after pregnancy, I promise is on the spectrum of normal. It may also be helpful to know that bigger breasts doesn't necessarily mean more milk. The size of your breasts are mostly determined by fatty tissue, and fatty tissue has nothing to do with milk production. Smaller breasts are perfectly capable of making plenty of milk. The main difference is really in storage capacity. Somebody with a larger storage capacity may be able to go longer between feedings, while someone with a smaller capacity may simply need to just nurse or pump a bit more often, and neither is better or worse. Your breasts also will not stay this size forever. In one study, breast volume, milk production, and storage capacity all decreased by about 6 months after birth. That really lines up with when babies typically start solid foods. And at 15 months, this study found that milk production was still substantial even though the breasts had returned to their pre-pregnancy size. And that's because your breasts get more efficient over time. One recurring theme you'll hear me talk about a lot anytime I'm discussing breastfeeding is that it works on a supply and demand system. So the more milk that you remove, the more milk that you make. Each breast also runs its own supply independently, which means that your breasts could end up slightly different sizes. Then, when your breasts do return to their pre-pregnancy size, really depends on a lot of factors: how long you breastfeed and whether you return to your pre-pregnancy weight. In early pregnancy, it's very common to have sensitivity, tenderness, or just outright soreness in your breasts. This can start as early as 1 to 2 weeks after conception. And for many women, this is one of the very first signs that they're pregnant. That soreness comes from hormonal changes, extra fluid retention, and your breasts getting ready for lactation. If your breasts are sore, a supportive bra can make a big difference. You may even want to consider wearing a bra when you sleep. Nipple sensitivity is a different challenge. Some women find that any fabric against their nipples is really uncomfortable. If you're home and you can go without a top, that may be a bit of a relief. It's also completely fair to let your partner know that your breasts are off limits for a while, especially when they're really sensitive or uncomfortable. The good news is that this early soreness usually eases up around the second half of the first trimester, so it won't last forever. Because your breasts grow and your rib cage expands to make more room for your baby, both your cup size and your band size are likely to change, and sometimes more than once. Most moms, again, remember, go up 1 to 2 cup sizes over the course of their pregnancy. You know that there's no shortage of products that are marketed for maternity, and a maternity bra is on a lot of must-have lists. But what exactly makes this different? Maternity bras are made to support your changing shape while you're pregnant. So they often have extra hooks at the clasp that allows for more change in your band size. They also tend to have softer, more flexible cups. Then you have nursing bras. These are designed for after your baby arrives. They typically have clips that allow you to undo the cup and expose your breast to feed your baby. Nursing bras are definitely convenient, and they do allow you to be more discreet if you're feeding your baby in a public place. I recommend not stocking up on maternity bras or nursing bras too early. Nursing bras, I would wait until around 36 weeks because your size may still increase and you want to leave some room for your milk to come in. If you're not sure where to start, you can get a professional fitting. Any maternity store or a department store lingerie section will offer a fitting. That takes the guesswork out of figuring out what size you are. And during pregnancy, a sleep bra or a soft wireless style bra can also help if soreness is making it difficult to get comfortable. Do keep in mind, maternity and nursing bras are nice to have, but they're not required. You can absolutely use any bra that fits and feels comfortable. As your breasts are growing quickly during pregnancy, that rapid growth can make skin feel tight as it stretches. And tight skin often feels itchy. The simplest way to resolve this is to keep your skin moisturized. That won't necessarily prevent anything, but it will bring you some comfort. You may also notice stretch marks. These are off-color lines that appear as your skin stretches. They tend to be pink or reddish and lighter than your surrounding skin tone. Stretch marks form when the supporting tissue under your skin stretches and tears during rapid growth. Genetics play the biggest role here, and whether you get them or not, unfortunately, that's something that's completely out of your control. A review of many topical treatments found no clear evidence that any of them reliably prevented stretch marks. The most promising single ingredient from a research standpoint that I've come across is Centella asiatica. There's really no downside to applying a cream or an oil. It may relieve some itching. And keep in mind, if you do end up with stretch marks on your breasts or anywhere else, they will fade over time. Another change that you may notice in your breasts is more visible veins. During pregnancy, your blood volume increases by roughly 50%. And that, combined with some other changes, means that the veins in your breasts may become more noticeable. These are larger bluish veins that you can see through the skin. Because your breasts are usually a lighter shade than more of your sun-exposed skin, these veins tend to stand out more, and they are especially visible with lighter skin tones. Good news, these are not permanent and they will fade with time. Along with your breasts changing shape and size, your areolas will typically get larger and darker. This is temporary, and after your baby arrives, they will usually fade in color. Over time, they may return entirely to their pre-pregnancy look, or they may stay slightly larger and darker than before. That change in color comes from an increase in melanin. That's the pigment that gives your skin, hair, and eyes their color. There's nothing that you can do to prevent this. It's just a normal side effect of pregnancy. As a side note, sun exposure can make this more pronounced. So if you happen to be sunbathing topless, just something to keep in mind. You may also notice small bumps on your areolas. These are the Montgomery glands, sometimes called Montgomery tubercles. This is named for the Irish obstetrician that first described them in the 1800s. These are always present in your areolas, but they get larger during pregnancy. What they do, they secrete oils that lubricate and protect your areola and your nipple. But beyond that, they also play a vital role in breastfeeding. A study of these secretions found that newborns increased their feeding-related behaviors in response to the scent, and that babies were more drawn to these secretions than to other stimuli. So basically, those little bumps actually will help your baby find your breasts. Next, we're going to talk about what changes you can expect in your nipples and more. Before we do that, I'd like to thank the sponsors that have supported this episode. A lot of companies offer exclusive discounts for pregnancy podcast listeners, and you can always see discounts and promo codes at pregnancypodcast.com/resources. If you have ever tried to get a baby to fall asleep in a stroller or a crib while you're trying to get things done, you know that the exact moment when the motion stops, they wake back up. The VTech V-Hush stroller rocker is designed for that exact problem. It's a portable device that attaches to almost any stroller or crib with a universal mounting system. And it uses a gentle mechanical rocking motion to help your baby fall asleep without you having to stand there rocking them. You can choose from 3 motion levels to match what works best for your baby. And VTech packs in thoughtful details to all their products. The stroller rocker has a built-in amber nightlight, a rechargeable battery, soothing sounds, white noise, and lullabies to help your baby drift off and stay asleep. Soothe your baby to sleep anywhere with the VTech V-Hush stroller rocker. Check it out at pregnancypodcast.com/VTech. This time of year, summer's winding down, schedules are filling in, mornings are having structure again, and you're rebuilding your routine one habit at a time. AG1 is the daily health drink that combines a multivitamin, pre- and probiotics, a methylated B complex, superfoods, and antioxidants all into one simple scoop. This is something that I have started every day with for many years, and I love knowing that I'm covering all the bases to give my body what it needs. If you listen to this podcast, you know how much I care about research. And AG1 goes to great lengths to invest in rigorous peer-reviewed clinical trials. They also test for hundreds of contaminants and impurities, and it's NSF certified for sport, one of the highest independent quality standards there is. I take 1 scoop every morning with cold water before the rest of my day takes over. Head to drinkag1.com/pregnancypodcast, and when you first subscribe, you'll get a free AG1 welcome kit, a free bottle of vitamin D3 plus K2, and a free AG1 flavor sampler with your first order. Go to drinkag1.com/pregnancypodcast. As a friendly reminder, pregnant or nursing women should seek professional medical advice before taking this or any other dietary supplement. Let's get back to today's episode. The changes don't stop at your areolas. Your nipples will also change. Often they get bigger, they will stick out more, and may even shift in shape slightly. Like your areolas, they will usually get smaller and return closer to their pre-pregnancy appearance after you finish breastfeeding. One thing to note, some women have nipples that are naturally more flat or even potentially inverted. A flat nipple doesn't protrude very much, even if it's stimulated, and an inverted nipple actually turns inward instead of pointing out. If this applies to you, you may wonder whether breastfeeding will be more difficult. For most moms, this is not a barrier. Pregnancy itself usually makes nipples more prominent. Plus, your baby is latching on to your breast, not just the nipple. Generally, flat or inverted nipples are not an issue. We touched on nipple sensitivity. Your nipples becoming more sensitive and responsive during pregnancy is not random. Your nipples are an erogenous zone, which means that stimulating them prompts your pituitary gland to release oxytocin. And that responsiveness is useful at several points for pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. First, nipple stimulation can actually help bring on labor. One study of breast stimulation at term, meaning at 40 weeks, found that it was associated with fewer inductions and more vaginal deliveries. About 37% of the stimulation group went into labor within a few days versus about 6% of those who did nothing. A Cochrane review found that breast stimulation significantly reduced the number of women still not in labor at 72 hours, from about 94% down to 63%. And it was linked to a lower rate of postpartum hemorrhage. The authors of this Cochrane review do note that safety has not been fully studied in high-risk pregnancies. This is something to have a conversation with your doctor or midwife. As a tool for naturally inducing labor, there is some evidence in favor of nipple stimulation, and there's not much downside for a low-risk pregnancy as long as you're not stimulating to the point of soreness. And if you're wondering how one might do this, this is something you could do manually or potentially with a breast pump. Second, oxytocin matters after birth. Your newborn should latch to your breast, ideally within the first hour, and that sucking motion will trigger a release of oxytocin. And that has two main effects. First, it reinforces breastfeeding as a positive bonding experience for both you and your baby. Second, it causes your uterus to contract, and that helps your uterus shrink back down and reduces bleeding after birth. As you're dealing with all of these changes that are happening, it's easy to forget that every single change that's happening in your body is designed for the survival of your baby. And your breasts are really the perfect example. The growth, the darker areolas, the more prominent nipples, those scented secretions are all working together to help your baby find your breast and latch on. Babies can actually do this largely on their own. This has been well documented in the breast crawl. This is a sequence in which a newborn who is placed on their mother's abdomen at birth will actually make their way up to the breast and begin breastfeeding independently. This is pretty amazing to watch, and it's a real testament to how instinctual breastfeeding is. So here's how it works. For the first hour after birth, your baby is usually very alert. So when they're placed skin to skin on your abdomen, they may bring their hands to their mouth. That allows them to taste and smell the amniotic fluid. They will pick up a similar scent from your breasts because the glands in your areolas smell much like amniotic fluid. Then slowly, your baby starts wiggling and crawling upward. This is not a fast process, and it takes a lot of patience. If you talk to your baby during this, they will actually recognize your voice and move towards it. As they're reaching for your nipple, contact with your nipple can make it protrude a little bit more. That makes latching easier. And that stimulation releases more oxytocin to help shrink your uterus and deliver your placenta, if that's something that has not occurred yet. And as your baby gets closer, their vision as a newborn is very limited, but your darker areolas act as a visual target. Eventually, your baby bobs their head, they find your nipple, and latch on their own. Every baby's different. Studies show that babies that are exposed to labor medications or that are separated from their mothers right after birth sometimes are less able to complete the breast crawl. In one study, most infants whose mothers received pain medication during labor didn't suck quite as effectively, and babies kept in uninterrupted skin-to-skin contact latched with better technique than those who were separated. In reality, most mothers are bringing a baby directly to their chest when they're born. You're not going to put your baby on your abdomen and wait for them to find the breast on their own. I just want to demonstrate how instinctive this is and how all of the changes in your breasts are actually designed to help with breastfeeding. Nearly every pregnant mom starts producing colostrum in the second half of pregnancy, as early as 16 weeks. Colostrum is your baby's first milk, and this is packed with immune protection. It contains high concentrations of secretory immunoglobulin A. This is an anti-infective agent that helps coat your baby's intestines, which helps block germs and foreign proteins that could trigger allergic sensitivities. It also contains a pancreatic secretory trypsin inhibitor. That's a really big way of describing something that helps protect, repair, and seal your baby's intestinal lining. You produce colostrum in very small quantities. It almost seems insignificant, but it's really nature's perfect food until your milk comes in. Plus, at birth, your baby's stomach is only about the size of a marble. You may have heard of antenatal colostrum harvesting. This is where some parents are hand expressing and freezing small amounts of colostrum in the final weeks of pregnancy. I felt like we had to touch on that in this episode, but to be clear, this is not something that everybody needs to do. Your body will produce colostrum for your baby, whether or not you harvest any of it ahead of time. Where this is useful is as a backup for babies that are at a higher risk of low blood sugar right after birth. This would apply to those who are born to mothers with gestational diabetes. Those babies are more likely to need supplementation in the first hours, and if you have expressed colostrum and have that on hand, that means that you could give them your milk instead of a formula. The largest trial on this was with 635 women with low-risk diabetes and pregnancy. They found that expressing from 36 weeks did not lead to earlier births or more neonatal intensive care admissions. Remember that nipple stimulation is tied to naturally inducing labor, which is why they were looking to see if it led to earlier births. If you do have gestational diabetes, if this is something that you're interested in, this is a great conversation to have with your doctor or midwife. Leaking colostrum can happen during pregnancy. If it does, that's simply a sign that your body is preparing for breastfeeding. Not everyone leaks. So if you don't, it doesn't mean that you're not producing colostrum. If it does happen, it tends to be very tiny amounts. Colostrum is usually a yellowish color and can range from thin to thick. After birth, it usually takes about 3 to 4 days for your milk to come in. You're going to know when this happens because your breasts feel noticeably full and heavy. Once your milk is in, leaking becomes more common, especially in those early weeks when you and your baby are still calibrating supply and demand. If your breasts get full and milk is not removed, they will leak. You can also leak randomly, like when you hear a baby cry or seemingly for no reason at all. This is where nursing pads come in handy. There's disposable and washable pads, and they spare your bras, clothing, and sheets and potentially save you from an awkward leak in public. One worry that I hear from time to time from a listener is that they're concerned that breastfeeding will leave your breasts saggy or deflated, or that they're just not going to look right later. This is one of the most persistent myths out there, and the evidence really doesn't support it. Your breasts do change after pregnancy, but breastfeeding itself is not the reason why. Most changes that people notice come from pregnancy, aging, genetics, and weight fluctuations, not from nursing. One study on breastfeeding and breast aesthetics found that breastfeeding did not negatively affect how breasts looked afterwards. Another study compared breast appearance between twins, and that reached a similar conclusion. As you age, your skin naturally loses some elasticity, and pregnancy stretches the breast tissue no matter how you end up feeding your baby. After you stop breastfeeding, it's normal for your breasts to feel softer and look a little less full for a while. Please do not let the fear of your breasts sagging or unwanted aesthetic changes to them to talk you out of breastfeeding, because those two are not linked. The vast majority of changes to your breast during pregnancy are completely normal. They're temporary and nothing to worry about. Your breasts naturally become fuller, denser. They might be a little bit lumpier as that milk-making tissue develops. That's all expected. If you feel a lump that is distinct, hard, or doesn't change over time, if anything is concerning at any point, bring it up with your doctor or midwife. Other signs to talk to your care provider would be any bloody nipple discharge or a change that only affects one breast. These aren't common things that happen, and the majority of them turn out to be nothing. But it's far better to bring it up with your doctor or midwife than to be worried about it and wondering if it's something you should be concerned about. If you're worried about anything, don't wait for your next appointment. You can always reach out to your doctor or midwife. I know that you're managing a lot of changes right now, and all of this can feel overwhelming. Understanding why these changes are happening can really help you be more compassionate for the incredible work that your body's doing to prepare for your baby. Breastfeeding is instinctive, but it's not always easy. For help with fundamentals, there's episodes on the basics of breastfeeding. If you're running into any challenges, cracked nipples, engorgement, a poor latch, there's also an episode on troubleshooting common breastfeeding issues. The Pregnancy Podcast has a lot of breastfeeding resources. This is a huge part of your life after your baby arrives, and you can see all of those breastfeeding resources at pregnancypodcast.com/breastfeeding. To recap everything we've covered in today's episode, we started with the basic anatomy of your breasts and covered how hormones like estrogen, progesterone, and prolactin drive nearly every change that you notice. We covered breast growth and size, why bigger breasts don't mean more milk. We talked about soreness and sensitivity, how your bra size will change throughout your pregnancy and after you have your baby. I covered that your veins may become more visible, your areolas will get darker, how your nipples will change. We also talked about the role that nipple sensitivity plays and how that can affect you if you're trying to induce labor or in your breastfeeding journey. I also covered colostrum, your milk coming in, and what your breasts really look like after breastfeeding. I'd like to thank you for tuning into the Pregnancy Podcast today. I hope that you find this episode helpful. If you have a friend that's pregnant, please share the podcast. So many listeners discover this through recommendations, and I appreciate you sharing it. Your breasts are just one of the many things that change during pregnancy, and it can easily send you searching for answers and worrying about what's normal. I built Pregnancy Podcast so that you don't have to do that. Join Pregnancy Podcast Premium to get access to every episode with evidence-based information for all your questions. Plus, it's all ad-free and in your favorite podcast app. Check it out at pregnancypodcast.com/premium.